When the Bulls drafted Patrick Williams with the 4th overall pick in 2020, for most it was a bit of a head scratcher and believed to be a massive stretch on the part of the Bulls to be taking a player who wasn't even a starter in college to have him go that high in the draft. Patrick Williams leading up to the draft wasn't even projected to go in the top 10 and even outside of the lottery on most mock draft boards. But days leading up to the draft, Pat's stock started to rise, especially when the Detroit Pistons, who had the number 7 pick at the time, had their eyes set on Pat. While the Bulls knew they wanted Williams, trading back in the draft was too much of a risk to potentially miss out on him, a player they believed would be one of the better two-way guys in the game in a few years' time, a player that had untapped potential at just the age of 19. And while Pat certainly showed some promise in his rookie year, especially when it came to his all-around defensive effort, since his rookie season, at the age of 19, Pat hasn't really progressed all that much, now going into his 5th year, a year where he got his big new contract and a year that is so critical for his development, where he's going to get more opportunity than ever before. And while I have been a big Pat believer, a big Pat defender, and still am to an extent, Patrick Williams going into the season is on the No Excuses Tour, a term I believe the guys over at CSGO coined, and I absolutely love it because this really is the year where we can no longer make excuses for Patrick Williams, even for the biggest Pat believers like myself. So let's talk about it further. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, of course, we got to see Patrick Williams in the Bulls preseason opener. We got to see him for the first time since getting injured back in January, and he did not look good. And that's putting it nicely. He actually looked pretty bad. But to be fair, and I know this is an excuse in a no excuses season, but first game back after a long absence from the court, preseason game, only played 13 minutes. Like Zach didn't look that great either after being out since January as well. So I'm going to give Pat a slight pass on that poor showing in the first preseason game. But if we start heading into the regular season and we're getting weeks and weeks into it and we're still seeing the same Patrick Williams we've been seeing the past couple of seasons, then yeah, we're in trouble. Because at that point, you have to start worrying about the contract that you just gave this guy when he's already starting to look like he's hit his ceiling, which is just an average role player at best that you handed $90 million to. Now, we won't just immediately jump to Pat sucking even by midseason. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt, a bit. But this is why Pat is on the No Excuses Tour, because before it was always something. Some valid excuses, some not. His rookie season, it was, well, he's young, 19, you shouldn't expect that much from a rookie that is still pretty raw. And even that, like I said, he had a solid rookie season, was selected all-rookie second team. But no one is expecting a rookie, unless you're a generational talent, to come out and have a huge impact on the court. Then, of course, his sophomore season, it was cut short when he went up for that dunk over Mitchell Robinson and got hacked and broke his wrist, I believe. He did return towards the end of that season, but no one was expecting that much of him coming off an injury. And mind you, this was the season where the Bulls pivoted to trying to win now, brought in Lonzo, Caruso, DeMar taking his spot at 3 in the starting lineup that he played most of his rookie season. And then in year 3, Pat had a decent season, but the excuses at that time that we would often hear from Bulls fans is, well, DeMar is holding him back. You would actually hear that not just about Pat, but some of the other young guys as well. DeMar controls the ball in his hands most of the game, gets most of the touches and shot attempts, and while, look, I don't think that that's entirely true. It's what some felt for why Patrick's growth was being stunted, because he was relegated to the corner and just kind of standing around watching while the team was more focused on their current veteran players to try and be competitive and win now. And then, of course, last season, another season cut short. And yeah, Pat showed some flashes prior to him getting injured, but that's kind of always been the thing with Patrick Williams. He's shown flashes or stretches of games where you're like, okay, this dude can be good. If only we could see this on a nightly basis, that we might really have something here. But that's all it really ever has been. Just some glimpses of greatness, but never consistently done. And I think that's what bothers me in all this, is that Pat does have the capability to be great. He has the physical tools to be a great NBA player. He can shoot from outside, has the size and strength and power to find his way inside, body guys on defense, athletic build, but we don't see it manifested on a nightly basis. And yes, maybe some of this isn't Pat's fault. It's not like the Bulls have a history of being known for developing players. And yes, he probably could have been used better the last couple of seasons to help with his overall development rather than just being solely a 3-and-D guy. But even then, it's on you as a player to work on your game, refine your skills, hone in on your weaknesses, and try and get better every day. Like, one thing that shocks me is how Patrick Williams is still so bad at dribbling the basketball in the NBA 5 years into it. How is he not working on his handles every day when he's bouncing the ball off his foot or getting destroyed by his defender when trying to drive to the hoop? He's got to work on his handles. And also, just generally speaking, man needs to work on his situational awareness and IQ when he's on the court. I'm not saying it's bad, but there are a lot of times where Pat just looks lost out there on offense, isn't where he needs to be, misses a rotation, misses an assignment, is out of position, doesn't come in to box out to get an offensive rebound. And I'm sorry, but that just can't happen at this stage of his career anymore. He's 23. I know he's still young and he technically hasn't entered his prime yet, but this is his 5th season in the NBA. Long gone are the days of giving him the rookie pass. It's time now to put your money where your mouth is, all $90 million of it. The other reason why this is a no excuses tour for Pat this season is because, hey, guess what? The Bulls changed directions, and now we're in a youth movement that is prioritizing guys like you. The DeMar excuse of him slowing down Pat's growth, which I never liked that excuse to begin with, that's gone. DeMar's no longer with the team. Caruso, who would often take his spot in the starting lineup at the 4, he's gone too. You're going to have ample opportunity when it comes to the overall number of shots you're getting. You're going to have the ball in your hands more. You're going to be getting more minutes, well, if he can play well, but the overall usage for Pat, in theory, should be the highest of his career with the Bulls' current roster. And not only that, it's a season where there are very low expectations for the Bulls. They're not going to be competing for anything. So not as much pressure for Pat to perform as there was in years past, although maybe all of us saying that this is the no excuses tour for him this season is probably enough pressure as it is. But there really shouldn't be anything stopping Pat from performing at his best this year other than Patrick Williams himself preventing that from happening. I've said this before, Patrick Williams' biggest issue has always been his confidence. The mental side of the game, he just can't seem to figure out. He's still too passive, too timid, doesn't play with a high degree of confidence when he's out there, overthinks things, and honestly, until Patrick gets over these mental hurdles where he doesn't have confidence in himself, I don't really see him breaking out in the way we need him to. Yeah, he'll still be a decent player because he can play defense, he can hit threes at a solid clip. Guys like that are always going to be needed in this league, but he's never going to break out into a star or even be a high impact player like a Derek White. That just won't happen as long as Patrick continues to be passive Pat, which we have literally seen for his entire career to date. But hey, listen, no more excuses. This is the time to get over all of that. This is the year to build that confidence, that swagger, that aggression, the early career jitters, whatever you want to call it. Putting that all away and be the player that was deserving of the number 4 overall pick and the $90 million contract. A player Bulls fans can be excited about for the future, because as of right now, I'm not seeing it. This is coming from one of the bigger Pat believers. I would love to hear what you guys think, though. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.